Turning now to the war in the Middle East. White House security advisor Jake Sullivan has been told by Israel's defense minister that the war with Hamas will, quote, last more than several months. Our Ramy Inocencio is following the latest from Tel Aviv. Ramy, good morning.
Anne-Marie, good morning there. There are words and there is action. Right now, the talk is Israel may ramp down its strikes on Gaza in the next few weeks, but fighting at a lower intensity could last through much of next year. A warning, the images coming up are graphic.
Carrying a bloodied boy, this man yells, "Where is the ambulance?" What stood here in Rafah were two homes now leveled by an Israeli strike. Hamas claimed dozens of civilians were killed. America says it's against Israel targeting civilians, said the survivor, but civilians are being targeted. With deaths in Gaza now just shy of 19,000 men, women, and children, according to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry, President Biden is again pressuring Israel for more restraint, more surgical, more precise military strikes.
I want them to be focused on how to save civilian lives, not stop going after Hamas, but be more careful.
In Israel, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan made the case.
The issue here is about when the transition from a high-intensity operation to a different phase of this campaign takes place.
That should happen in 2 to 3 weeks, two U.S. officials now tell CBS News, but followed by lower levels of bombing for several months. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to the airwaves after, saying, "I told our American friends we are more determined than ever until Hamas is eliminated." Israel's military released new footage of what it claims are terrorists killed in a major tunnel and hailed the surrender of about 70 alleged Hamas fighters, while Palestinians mourned in the West Bank town of Jenin after Israeli raids killed about a dozen people. This Israeli soldier sang into a mosque microphone a Hebrew song linked to Hanukkah in an act of religious desecration, which Israel's military condemned.
And today, Jake Sullivan is in the West Bank to speak with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. President Biden envisions a revitalized Palestinian Authority governing Gaza, but Prime Minister Netanyahu says that he would not allow that to happen, and as long as he's prime minister.
Yeah, it's very complicated. This is something that the U.S. has sort of floated, some sort of participation with the Palestinian Authority, and I presume that is part of what Jake Sullivan is going to be talking to the Palestinian president about. I don't know if the Palestinian Authority is on board with it either, though.
Right, and that is very likely why Jake Sullivan is in the West Bank today to talk about the so-called day after the war, whenever that happens, and the preparations that are needed in order to get there. NSA Sullivan yesterday did say that the U.S. and Israel are on the same page when it comes to Palestinians governing the occupied Palestinian territories. But then there was a divergence after that. Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that he does not want Hamas, of course, to go back to governing Gaza, but he also doesn't want Fatah, which Mahmoud Abbas is the head of, to return to govern Gaza as well. Back in 2007, Fatah was kicked out in elections there, so he doesn't want that to happen as well. The criticism of the Palestinian Authority, of Fatah, is that it is corrupt and that it is impotent. But again, President Biden saying that, stressing even a revamped and revitalized Palestinian Authority. Unsure what that really means, but those are the words from the president.
Meantime, we've got some disturbing news. The bodies of 3 hostages held by Hamas have been recovered by Israeli forces. What are we learning about their identities? And has there been any movement in terms of negotiating the release of hostages?
Right. Right now we're hoping for hostages to come out of Gaza alive, but unfortunately it's also happening the other way around. Nick Beezer, 19, Ron Sherman, 19, kidnapped from an Israeli military outpost on the Gaza border. Hamas apparently released a video of them while they were alive, and sometime over the past few weeks, they unfortunately died. Also, Elia Toledano, 28, kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival in Re'im. Their bodies, we understand, have since been returned to Israel, but it's unclear as to the circumstances of their death. Now, the IDF says that the number 134 is where they stand in terms of the number of people, both living and dead, in Gaza. They say that they believe 20 people have died in captivity. But looking ahead, there is some hope that, coming from Israeli media, that the Mossad chief, David Barnea, might be in talks to renew negotiations for hostage releases. Israeli media saying that after David Barnea's offer to go to Qatar was denied by the Israeli War Cabinet, apparently the Mossad chief maybe went to Egypt to try to negotiate hostage releases there.
All right, Ramy, thank you very much. Well, White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby says that the White House knows that a two-state solution in the Israel-Hamas war is, quote, elusive, but they are not giving up. His comments came while speaking to my colleague Major Garrett on America Decides. Just take a listen.
I'll let Mr. Netanyahu speak for his own intents here. I can only tell you that President Biden still believes that in the promise and the potential of a two-state solution. We understand that that's going to be elusive right now, that we're not close to getting there. But in conversations that Jake Sullivan, who was in Riyadh yesterday, had with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, it was clear that the Saudis are willing to move forward on this idea of normalization between the two countries. Again, we're not close to that. It's not going to happen anytime soon. But that's an important step to getting maybe to a two-state solution. But here's the thing, Major. A two-state solution is going to require leadership on both sides, on the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. The right kind of leadership that's willing to be transformative, leadership that is willing to see peace and security for the Israeli people and for the Palestinian people. President Biden's not giving up on that hope, and he's not giving up on the conversation that we're willing to have with leaders on both sides about being those kinds of leaders.
Well, you can stream America Decides Monday to Thursday right here at 5 p.m. Eastern.